And I will call this February meeting of the Raleigh Stormwater Management Advisory Commission to order. Thanks everybody for being here. We have a couple of absences and introductions to start off the meeting this month. Joe Stansel has requested an excused absence, as has Ann Spafford for today. So do we have a motion to excuse? Mark, thank you.
Excuse.
And a second?
Second.
All right, I'll give that one to Tyrrell. And all in favor of that excused absence, just show your hand there. And I should have covered I probably should have done introductions first. Nicola, we just use a raised hand since we're not present to do voice votes for our votes. Okay, motion passes to excuse those absences. And what I should have started with was an introduction. We have a new Stormwater Management Advisory Commission member, Ms. Nicola Hill. If I could put you on the spot and allow you to introduce yourself. I think you're muted.
Oh, I was double muted, excuse me. Yeah, I kind of said earlier when I first started on that I'm very excited to kind of be here, and I'm honored to be a member here. My just kind of a brief background. My initial training was in environmental sciences and geology, and my graduate school work was kind of focused on water management. And I've been in Raleigh about 4 years now, and since then really focused my time in the water field, specifically with utility planning. So just been here about 4 years now, but happy to call it home and happy to kind of contribute more.
Glad to have you, and especially to have another geological perspective on the commission.
Hiking and water, I guess it's my two favorite things now.
It's good. They go together well. Great. Should have in your agenda packet minutes from our January meeting, and I trust that everybody's had a chance to review those. Is there any points from that anyone wants to bring up or discuss? Okay.
I move we approve the minutes.
Thanks, Mark. Do we have a second? Jamon, thank you.
Yes, Jonathan.
All in favor of approving the minutes? Okay, motion carries. Thanks. Moving right along.
Portland में भी काफी सारे
हैं. Money. Okay, good. Next up on the agenda, well, does anybody have any other adjustments we need to make for the agenda before we proceed? Okay. We have our regularly scheduled section for public comment. Wayne, do we have anybody who's indicated an interest in commenting or addressing the commission?
I see none in the chat and have not received any requests via email, but I will continue to monitor the chat. So if there are any participants watching who would like to make a comment, please let me know in the chat.
Thanks. And yeah, for any members of the public who are attending today, we do welcome public comment. We have this block scheduled in it, and within reason, if you have questions or comments later, we may be able to respond to those later in the meeting, but please do at least indicate topics that you'd like to hear some additional follow-up on. So we'll move on to our commission and stormwater staff updates, beginning with Ms. Talavera. And your whatever you'd like to take a moment to address with the commission.
Sure. Yeah, I've been an environmental consultant for many years with a focus on analytics, using data to help solve problems. I personally have enjoyed hearing about the city's GSI advancements and the sustainable initiatives, and feel I often learn something new at each meeting. So it is my pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll take a moment here to also, another thing I should have covered at the beginning for Nicola, there's a wealth of knowledge and background about SMAC and our procedures here on this panel. But all of us got it through asking stupid questions along the way. So encourage you to, if any staff member or commission member launches into something that you don't quite understand, please feel free to interrupt, ask the question, or if there's just something you're curious about, ask away. All right. Any other items from other commissioners at this time? Our usual Planning Commission SMAC liaison, Mr. Stansel, is not here today. Don't know if there's anything, Wayne, that you think we should take note of in regards to the Planning Commission at this point.
Yes, I can give thank you, Mr. Chair. I can give a brief update. And I had mentioned this case at the last commission meeting, but there was last night at the city council, 2 nights ago, at the city council public hearing, a rezoning case, Z2121. It is at the northeast corner of Six Forks Road and Strickland, and it is in the Falls Watershed Overlay District, basically in the drinking water supply watershed. So there have been a number of questions and comments that came up at the public hearing last night, as well as from council members. So the council voted to keep the public hearing open for the next 2 weeks, and it will be heard again at the February 15th city council meeting, which that will be an afternoon public hearing, since it's the second Tuesday of, or I'm sorry, the third Tuesday of the month. But there were questions that council asked staff to research more regarding any past precedents related to water and sewer hookups, and if water and sewer service is available at this site. And so there will be additional discussion in a staff memo if anyone's interested in that. I'd be glad to share that with the commission once that information is prepared, or if you'd like to listen to that case on February 15th. That one that does have particular stormwater related issues arising. I think that's the primary one that I think is worth mentioning to the commission.
Okay. Yes, I for one would appreciate if you share that information when you're ready from in terms of the staff response to the council questions.
Be glad to.
And I think all the commissioners would appreciate hearing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a question and I didn't pay attention to that case, but Wayne, you just noted that it was about water and sewer hookups and things like that, but was there a water quality, stormwater related line of questioning as well? That
Yeah.
would interest us in a deeper way?
Yes,
I know it's in the water supply watershed, but I'm just curious as to what would happen at the table, I guess.
Right. So I'll try to give a brief, but the stormwater relevant issues. The proposal for rezoning is to take what is currently an R1 zoning designation, which would be one single family house per acre, and it's approximately a 14-acre parcel, so would allow 14 houses under the current zoning designation. the request has been for, and I'm not going to get the exact zoning right, but basically 14 units per acre, which would allow approximately 200 units to be constructed. Now there still are impervious or built upon area limits that would be put in place, and that maximum is 30%, and that number does not change from the current 1 acre zoning to the proposed zoning. So the built upon area would not change. The density would be vertical. And I think so the other concerns would be related to vehicles being accessing the site. Obviously, if there was, for example, an apartment community that had 200 units, there would be a lot more vehicles passing through the roads and the access to that site versus probably 14 single family homes. So I think there are some potential water quality issues associated with that. Now, the developer has offered a number of stormwater related conditions as part of the rezoning related to, one of them is 1% of the area in the parcel would be dedicated to green stormwater infrastructure. And then in addition to that, the design criteria that they would design and implement green stormwater infrastructure to control a 2.88-inch storm, which is twice as large as the storm that our current GSI requirements would be in the drinking water supply watershed. So they are offering some above and beyond stormwater related treatment commitments in exchange for the larger number of units. But there are concerns that have been raised about that number of units being allowed as rezoned in the water supply watershed.
Thank you for that. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone has any other questions, I'd be glad to answer those, or there is information on the city's website, more specifics on that case.
Thanks, Wayne. I don't know if you know this authoritatively, but are you aware of comparable rezonings into the water supply watershed at this point that have been successful?
There was a case that was brought before the council just past October that was in the Falls Lake watershed along Baileywick Road, which allowed an upzoning, I believe it was to about 3 units per acre. So it was an upzoning over what had been the one unit per acre, but not to the degree of the proposal for this property.
Okay, thank you.
And then there are adjacent to this unit 2 churches which are allowed in residential zoning, but do have large parking lots that are limited only by the 30% built upon area restriction, and do obviously have similar traffic related concerns in terms of vehicles in and out of the parcel. But the property just to the east is a large church. So that's an issue as well.
Thanks for that coverage of that case, Wayne. Any other commissioners have questions or comments on that? Okay. Wayne, you have team updates?
I do. Thank you, sir. So a couple quick updates. First, I would like to announce that we have our new stormwater administrator over infrastructure has joined the team on January 10th, 2022. Mani Kumar, and Mani, we're very pleased to have him. He is a PE, has already obtained his PE in North Carolina, although he is moving from Austin, Texas, and he brings 20 years of municipal capital improvement delivery experience and a range of leadership skills. Has been previously with the cities of Austin, Texas, as well as Phoenix, Arizona, where he was responsible for program management, asset management, environmental sustainability, and customer service related functions. In addition, he's a PE, as I'd mentioned. He's also a project management professional and a professional traffic operations engineer. He has an Master's of Public Administration from Arizona State and an MS in Civil and Transportation Engineering from San Jose State, as well as a BS in Civil Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology. So we're very excited to have Mani, and Mani's turned on his video. Welcome, Mani. We're glad to have you here in the role. So, and Mani will be over the CIP infrastructure delivery as well as the drainage assistance program delivery aspects of our programs.
Thank you, Wayne, and good afternoon, all the members. I'm sorry, I'm outside, so I wish I could be there, in the office or in person someday. But today, I'm outside. So, hope to meet with you all in person soon someday. Wayne said.
Great, thanks, Mani.
Welcome to Raleigh, Mani.
Thank you. Thanks. Beautiful place to be.
I'd also like to make a quick announcement. You'll see Tiffany Mazanek, I'm sorry, Tiffany Mazanek, on. She is filling in as our communications analyst. Kristen Freeman has left the city to take another job opportunity. Tiffany fills a similar role for our roadway design and construction, is helping us out in the transition while we look for someone to fill Kristen's shoes. So we very much appreciate having Tiffany on board to help us out during this transition period.
Happy to help.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And then the other quick updates, Mr. Chair, if I could, I guess two related comments. Your term, Mr. Chair, is up in March, and your full 6 years will be fulfilled. So thank you. We appreciate your service very much. That will also make you ineligible for renewal. And timely in that March is also the month that we ask SMAC to do your elections, your annual elections. So typically there has been a nomination and then a voting process that is run by the chair, and would request that you nominate and vote for people to fill the positions of chair, vice chair, and then the new role that we just had for the first time this past year is Planning Commission liaison. So that will be on the March agenda for the commission, but just wanted to give you all advance notice to start thinking about that. And if anyone wanted to start making nominations or volunteering to fill any of those roles, I think that would be appropriate over the next month.
Yeah. Thanks for raising that, and I'll encourage all the commissioners to consider plugging into any of those roles, and or think about your fellow commissioners and who you'd like to see in those roles. And I guess we can take nominations and vote on them at the March meeting, right? So
Correct.
Start your competition, start your lobbying efforts, what have you.
Printing the yard signs.
Yeah, printing yard signs, um, etc.
The next item, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben Brown. We have an update on the floodplain maps for Wake County. Ben, if you'd please share that update.
Yep, sure will. First of all, as of January 19th, we were informed by FEMA that our new FEMA flood maps for Wake County would be effective on July 2022. As some of you know, this was like 5 years in the making, at least on the preliminary level. So this is pretty exciting to have an actual firm date to kind of set our clocks by. And what that means for the city is we have till that date to formally adopt those maps and move forward through that adoption process. Staff doesn't think that'll be an issue as far as timing or anything like that, but it does take a public hearing to formally formally adopt the new maps. But the city has until that July 19th date to adopt those, and if they are adopted sooner, the effective date is still that July 19th date. So just in case somebody's curious. And any questions?
Ben, could you comment also on how the timing of that would relate to the adoption of the revised floodplain regulations?
Sure. So as some of the commissioners may remember from the floodplain text change last year, we wanted the floodplain text change to correspond with those new maps coming out. And our best long range guess at that time was April 1st, 2022. Well, we were still 3.5 months short of our long range guess. So staff will also be going back to council to ask them if they want to make the effective date of the floodplain text change to coincide with those new maps going forward. That was the reasoning when the text change was approved last spring. So staff is not anticipating a lot of pushback, but it is up to the council to make that decision.
Ben, would it be possible to have just a real quick summary of what changes are associated with the new maps, if there's anything?
Yes. So the major change, if any of y'all have lived through any map updates, and the way Wake County updates their maps, you would have to be at least 30 to live through more than one at this point. Basically, usually the maps, once they get new data and new survey data, flood elevations usually rise a little bit. And for the most part, that's usually true. And in our Walnut Creek area, we are showing a few rises, but the biggest change for us is in the Crabtree Creek area is there was a modeling error that's been around since that was fixed. And it's actually causing some of the flood levels to go down. Now the flood area is still staying the same, but like in places like around Crabtree Mall, the current maps say there will be about 7 feet of flood of flooding, and we really haven't seen that. We've definitely seen flooding, but it gets down to about what we've seen as the high water marks kind of correspond with what those new maps are saying. So really in the Crabtree Basin, this is a kind of a odd map update cycle where we are seeing flood elevations go down in the Crabtree Basin. So there are a lot of people that are anxiously awaiting these maps because they will have lower flood insurance premiums in that Crabtree Basin. So that's our biggest change.
Was that the main one that was impacted there, as far as people who, I'm sure with citizens and, people who are actually, property owners seeing that change? And what kind of, is that considered when doing that, or how many different basins would that be impacting?
It's mainly where we found the error, which was in the Crabtree Basin.
Sure.
So that's really the only basin that was affected. Usually when you go through a map update like this, the elevations invariably go down because you got better data than your maps did, say, 5-10 years ago.
Okay.
So that's why Raleigh was kind of odd, because one of the trip ups for Wake County was they had a high number of appeals in Wake County. So that's why the process took longer than was anticipated. Raleigh only had 4 appeals. And so that's obviously not a very high number. And that's probably got a lot to do with the fact that some of our flood elevations were going down. And you really see
Got it.
appeal people who are seeing the flood elevations go up on them. So
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
no problem.
Hey, Ben, this is Graham. With the preliminary models that are on the FEMA side or the NC1 map, those are basically I mean, you haven't seen shifts in lines in the last year on that kind of stuff, right? So if we're using the preliminary lines.
Nope, we have not yet. Those are going to be the maps that we'll be being effective and going forward with.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, that's the only high priority topic. Next, moving to the notices prior to construction, none to report at this time. So that's all we have for the stormwater staff updates. Move on to the next agenda item. That's okay with you, Mr. Chair?
I was just eloquently giving you an introduction over here, Wayne, to this next opportunity, but I was muted.
Okay.
So please take
Thank
it away.
you. Thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and get these other screens out of the way. Are you all seeing my PowerPoint presentation? Great, thank you. All right, well, thank you all. We thought, given the number of relatively new commission members we have had recently, as well as it's been a little while since we've gone through a discussion of our mission, vision, and goals, that it would be appropriate to review those and allow the commission to ask questions, ask for provide more input as to whether there's any revisions, modifications, input you would like to make. And in addition, we thought that this would be a good presentation that would fit well with the next presentation, which will be the city's strategic plan. Stephanie Olson will be given an overview of that plan. And then a number of staff will also be talking about some of the individual strategic initiatives that have particular stormwater relevance. And so thought it would be a good companion presentation to that strategic plan presentation to review the goals, mission, vision, and goals for stormwater. So I will proceed. Feel free, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt if you'd like. Stormwater's mission is to manage stormwater to preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth for the community. And we that mission has remained consistent for quite a few years now, but always open to input if anyone has ideas and would like to discuss revisiting that. And you, Stormwater Management Advisory Commission, are a big part of how we set our objectives, set our priorities, and help liaison and engage with the community in order to achieve that mission. And so this is the photo that we do need to update here. There's some new commission members on board, so we will be updating that and then using the updated slide for our presentation to City Council on March 14th to present our budget. And just a quick review too. We will be bringing our budget proposal to you at the March meeting to give you an opportunity to provide input to that and ask any questions prior to the presentation to the City Council. So the vision, which is a fairly recent addition, which the Commission provided some input in creating, which we appreciate. Our vision is to be the smartest stormwater program possible to economically and equitably achieve our mission. In short, to be stormwater smart. And we've been using this vision and be stormwater smart marketer in some of our communications. You'll see it on the website in terms of how our programs are being smart and how we are working to help our community be stormwater smart as well. And this philosophy is being applied to all of the programs that support our mission. And there are many. Outreach and engagement programs, development reviews, water quality, green stormwater infrastructure, watershed planning and asset management, municipal storm system operations and maintenance, infrastructure and drainage assistance projects, floodplain management, and utility and financial management. And these programs have lots of overlap, collaboration, coordination, but all serve to support us achieving our mission. Let me go through now. We have 6 goals related to how we want to be stormwater smart. We want our programs to be stormwater smart and our community to be stormwater smart. Goal number 1 is understanding the level of service, needs, and expectations of the community and setting our priorities, resources, and budgets accordingly. And one of the areas we've really been focusing on lately and have spoken with the Commission about this, and we'll continue that conversation, is to work smarter through better diversity, equity, and inclusion best practices so that we can improve the understanding of community needs and the equity of solutions. So you may recognize this flow chart related to our engagement processes that we've developed as part of our equity and inclusion framework for how we do watershed studies. And we've been applying that here recently with, I think, very good success on the Hairsnipe Creek watershed, which is another part of our work smarter with updated watershed planning to improve data, engage the community, and provide holistic solutions. And our new engagement framework was deployed on this watershed study as a pilot, and we've had very good success. We've had over 600 survey responses from the community as part of the outreach program, identifying flooding, erosion, water quality, and all types of concerns in the watershed as reflected on this map. So throughout the watershed. So we're really very, very pleased with the results that we're seeing so far from some of the new strategies we're deploying that included both virtual and electronic surveying and engagement as well as in person. So we think that hybrid combination moving forward of engagement is going to be very, very powerful. Goal number 2, implementing a high quality data-driven, innovative program through continuous improvement. And we've really been focusing, as you've heard us talk about in the past, on better asset management programs and better data collection and understanding condition of our assets through increased condition assessment will really help us be smarter about our asset rehabilitation and replacement budgeting and priorities. And we're seeing big dividends in the increased focus on condition assessment and the additional resources that with the Commission's support we've been able to add those resources and get a lot more information about our system. The goal here is really to fix our infrastructure before it fails, because it's always less expensive to fix it beforehand and be proactive, find the issues and go ahead and address those before it turns into a larger failure that could impact other infrastructure, streets, or even water and sewer in the vicinity should a stormwater pipe or structure fail. Working smarter by using better data and keeping data current. Another example project, using data management and field assessment tools to identify risks and prioritize resources. We're doing a lot of field data collection of updating our outfall condition as well. And as part of our asset management plan, implementing a risk-based priority model for where to focus our maintenance resources as well as our rehabilitation resources. So the goal here is to make better data-driven decisions for allocating our resources. Goal number 3, be good stewards of staff, budgetary, and environmental resources. Some examples under this goal, and Ben just mentioned the updated regulatory changes that Commission supported and Council endorsed unanimously to restrict new development in the floodplain and keep new development out of flood-prone areas, and that helps to add additional protection throughout the floodplain and keep new development from occurring. So protecting people and the natural environment. And in addition to this, we are ramping up our voluntary flood hazard buyout program to identify flood-prone properties and to help families living in those flood-prone areas, should they want to, voluntarily to move out and help them find safer residential accommodations when we can and when they are willing to do so. Engagement of the community is also a big part of this. So working smarter by expanding our flood safety efforts. You've heard us talk about our flood early warning system to help give us advanced warning of when flood-prone areas may be vulnerable, and then just notify our community of those flooding risks faster and more accurately. And in addition, through engagement, in this photo, those of you who were here for the recent presentation of the floodplain creative educational exhibit, which is located near the Blue Ridge Road Bridge near Crabtree Valley, to help educate the community of the risks of flooding. And these poles represent historic flood elevations of various storms, many of them hurricanes, but not all of them hurricanes that have caused flooding in the Crabtree Valley area. So help folks understand the risks associated with those flooding events. Work smarter with funding. We are working to leverage a variety of funding sources to help reduce project backlog. We've mentioned a number of these so far. We continue to have good success. There were a number of grants or programs were awarded this year, and we continue to pursue additional grants. In fact, just last week, we submitted a grant application to the state of North Carolina DEQ for $1 million, which would go toward helping for construction costs of the Upper Durant Nature Park conversion of the lake to a habitat wetland. So many of you may be familiar with that project. That was our first lake management evaluation project that recommended a habitat wetland, and that went through SMAC and then was endorsed by City Council as well. And then we're also looking at user fees, our permitting fees, mitigation credits. That's a topic that we will bring to the commission in the near future, and had the consultant give us a report to help us formulate what a mitigation credit program would look like. And then, as we've mentioned before, we are taking a very hard look at revenue bonds. The stormwater program in Raleigh historically has not used bonding. We've been a pay-as-you-go only program, but we are looking at revenue bonds, potentially issuing those as early as fiscal year 25, which isn't too far away. It's only 2.5 years away. We need a little time to get ready for those, but in general, we've gotten good feedback from other departments, budget and finance, in terms of using that as a mechanism that would really help us deliver a lot more of our backlog work in our capital improvements plan more quickly. Being stormwater smart, goal number 4, delivering integrated services and projects through collaboration across the division and across citywide programs using partnerships and teamwork. And we continue to partner with many other city departments. This bioretention device was installed as part of the Hillsborough Street renovation that was constructed by our roadway design and construction division just a few years ago now. And in fact, more recently, even the Hillsborough Street Economic Development Group helped secure a grant to spruce it up a little bit. You'll see the mural that was painted around the outside of the bioretention device to make it look very, very nice, and had a recent grand opening of the upgraded event. And actually, Ann Spafford, who is, I don't think, here today on the commission, her students were involved in a design competition to select the plantings that would be planted in this bioretention device. So upgraded the inside as well as the outside, and a good example of collaboration. Moving on, goal number 5, meeting or exceeding all local, state, and federal regulatory requirements. We continue to work on the design manual, which is coming in the near future, to upgrade our design standards to better mitigate stormwater impacts of development. And we're also working hard with our inspections group to make sure that those standards are upheld on a daily basis throughout the city. So this is a program that will continue to be very, very important in order to monitor development in compliance with our regulations. As we know, there's a lot of development going around right now in Raleigh, so that's going to continue to be an important part of our success. We're also looking at our process documentation and updating our standard procedures. Our team has identified, and we had consultants working with us to identify gaps in our compliance for our MS4 permit. And we've been working hard, and I feel very good about the progress we've made in filling those gaps, as we do expect sometime in the first half of 2022 an audit from the state of our MS permit. And we believe that we are in very good shape in preparation for that audit. And then 6, last but not least, building and maintaining trust with the community through engagement, awareness, and education of our program mission, goals, and objectives. And we continue to work hard through the engagement framework that we mentioned, the equity inclusion framework, and continue to work through community groups who are trusted and established within the community, and leverage those connections. This photo is one of the green stormwater infrastructure linear bioretention devices that was recently constructed down on Peterson Street, down by the Walnut Creek Wetlands Center. And this group was a combination of the North Carolina Division of Environmental Quality staff, which helped provide funding for the project, as well as representatives of Partners for Environmental Justice, who also came out and were very supportive of this, and another green stormwater infrastructure that was constructed using the same funds nearby in the same neighborhood. So continue to look for opportunities to engage the community, educate them on what we're doing, and as well as receive their ideas and feedback on what they would like to see in the community to help improve stormwater level of service. And as you recall, the very first one of our goals was to understand the community's level of service expectations and needs. So this engagement process helps us do just that. And so goal number 6 feeds right back around to goal number 1 to help us really understand the expectations of the community. So summarizing, when we work smarter, we ensure we get diverse community input through you, the commission, as well as our other public outreach avenues to improve the understanding of the needs of the community and find and deliver equitable solutions, update our watershed planning to get better data, engage the community and drive more effective and holistic capital improvement solutions, improve our flood hazard mitigation program through regulation changes and equitable voluntary buyouts, as well as moving toward our in-house floodplain modeling program, using green stormwater infrastructure on city projects to lead by example, as well as encouraging GSI use by private development, improve our design standards, mitigate near and long-term stormwater impacts, including the impacts of climate change, and reach the community through trusted established leaders and groups to improve engagement, awareness, and knowledge of our program mission, goals, and objectives. So in the end, our vision is be the smartest stormwater program possible to economically and equitably achieve our mission, or be stormwater smart. So thank you for the opportunity to review this again and give some updates. I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time. Let's see if I can.
Thank you, Wayne. We do have plenty of time for questions on this presentation, and any of those I think would help set up our understanding for the next item on our agenda too. So encourage anybody with questions to go for it.
This is Nicola. I just had a quick question regarding one of the previous slides on the development side and how you're kind of working with that one. Just again, typically don't think about this every day, but obviously past development and see how that's kind of driving a lot of different growth areas. Do you mind explaining what the kind of context was for developing that one and how it's changed over the evolved since its creation and what that's meant to improve runoff and things like that?
Yeah, very good question. Be glad to. And I'll start off, but I'm going to ask Ben Brown if he's able to comment as well. But we are in the process of updating our stormwater design manual, and that manual contains all of the regulations and requirements and best practices that all development within the city of Raleigh must meet and adhere to. And so all development, private and public, that is proposed must go through a plan review process that our stormwater plan reviewers review those plans and check the calculations, make sure that they're meeting all of the standards that are in our design manuals and all of our regulations. And then we also have an inspection team that during construction goes out and visits the construction sites to make sure all those design standards are being met, as well as the focus on erosion and sediment control practices and make sure those practices are being installed and maintained properly. And Ben, if you could maybe comment on the design manual briefly and some of the changes that are happening there.
Yes, the design manual update is really focused on kind of looking at Raleigh's development trends, which has been smaller, more infill type um, private development, as far as like building homes on single lots and not necessarily taking down visions and things like that, and also the move towards more like uh, apartment living and that sort of development as well. So that's what the design manual changes are really focused on. And there's also some updates on the other stuff as well, since it's been quite some time since our last stormwater design manual update, but mainly to look at smaller kind of drainage issues and things like that with infill development and other types.
Thanks.
No problem.
Wayne, I have a question. One, thank you for leading us through this presentation. We're coming up on the third anniversary of Senate Bill 62, which basically tied municipalities' hands as relates to stormwater in private development. I know the city is taking the lead and saying that GSI is used on, of course, city property. But I'm wondering, if we could imagine any type of work that we can do, because we are the capital city in the capital county. I won't say overturn, because we don't do politics in that way. But to encourage something different, because if we did not have that bill, then certainly we would have more latitude as it relates to private development in GSI. So I really throw out that question, comment, just to see any reaction you or any of your staff have.
Yes, thank you, Reverend Taylor. Good question. And just to confirm, to Senate Bill 62 that you're referencing is the bill that said that municipalities are unable to regulate stormwater from existing impervious areas. Am I correct in remembering
That's
that
correct.
reference?
That's
Right.
correct,
Good.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So that is, as you'd said, Commissioner, a limitation in our regulatory authority, that if there is existing impervious area on a site and that site is redeveloped, the city is only legally able to require that stormwater controls be placed on the incremental increase in impervious area. We cannot require controls be placed on the impervious area that was existing prior to development. So it does limit from a stormwater treatment perspective. So I think you make a good point, Reverend Taylor, that then what we have been focusing on doing is trying to incentivize private developers to use stormwater controls in those situations above and beyond what we can regulate, by considering other types of incentives that the city can offer. One example that we have in place right now is called the Raleigh Green Express Review. And that is an incentive whereby if a developer proposes green stormwater infrastructure above and beyond what's required, that they get an express review through our plan review process, which usually costs a fee. And that express review gives them direct access to our plan reviewers and speeds up the review process. So that's one example of one of the incentives we've tried to provide, although we've had limited use of that. So we're revisiting that in other types of incentives. That is one of the areas that you may recall in our GSI plan will be a continued focus to consider other types of incentives that we could offer. And then the other avenue that we are working toward is to help educate the community as part of the rezoning process, that as rezoning cases are considered. If there are potential stormwater impacts, the city cannot require stormwater conditions be offered, but the community can make suggestions as to stormwater related incentives that could be offered as part of the rezoning process. So we're developing and have started working on some a menu, if you will, of stormwater related conditions that could be selected and offered up by developers as part of a rezoning process. So that's something else we're working on too. But we definitely will include the commission as we pick that GSI plan implementation back up. We're making progress in some areas and still have some more work to do in others. Ben, anything you'd like to add on related to the development?
No, I think the key for GSI is really finding those worthwhile. I think we thought maybe the permit fees and that thing would be an easy one, like a low-hanging fruit, but I think we're gonna have to go back through our stakeholder groups to kind of figure out what is a really valuable incentive for them to have, because there are developers out there that do want to do this kind of green sort of development as well. It's just a matter of tapping in and getting them to kind of be a leader. And that's sort of why we wanted to start with the city too, to be a leader, like in that show it can work and kind of move forward from there.
Yes, and one other quick item, if I may too, and Scott Bryant sent me a little chat. Thanks, Scott, to remind me. We do through our stormwater utility is funded by impervious-based fees. And so there are programs whereby customers can implement stormwater controls above and beyond the requirements and then get a credit on their stormwater bill that would reduce their overall fee. So that's another program that we do have a handful of customers taking advantage of. We're currently looking at that to see how we might further implement that to make it a little bit more enticing. But overall, any customer who reduces the impervious surface on their property will get a direct impact through a reduced stormwater bill on a month-to-month basis as well. So that's somewhat of a built-in incentive to reduce impervious area.
Wayne, you had mentioned the flood early warning system, the fuse. Curious if there's any interest in or inertia against making that publicly available, that platform.
Yeah, so good question, Mr. Mark Wood. So there are components of the flood early warning system that are available on our website. There are links that allow customers to watch where the gauges are and see the color-coded changes based on whether those gauges are flooding or not. And so the data aspects, many of the data aspects of that warning system are publicly available. The parts that are not publicly available right now are the model runs and model interpretations that use all of the gauge adjusted radar rainfall, put it into a model, and then predict flooding in the future. And at this point, we have not made that publicly available. In part, there's practical reasons, and then there's other public information reasons. The practical reasons are that website is so critical to our operations that if we had public flooding into it and building up or tying up the capacity, it could impact our ability to use it during a serious event. So it doesn't have the web capacity right now. So that's one practical aspect. The other aspect of it, though, that we do have some concerns about is it still requires professional interpretation and judgment for the accuracy of those predictions. And we have a feel from that in terms of how we've been using the predictive tools, but it's not perfect. And so we would not want the public to get on there and perhaps if there's a glitch or something that happens in the model that predicts flooding that is more severe or less severe in one particular area, we wouldn't want people to be either alarmed or unalarmed, depending on those results, whereby we have the ability to add professional judgment and then alert the community as appropriate.
Thanks, that makes good sense. I appreciate that.
Good questions, though. Appreciate all the feedback. And that is certainly, Mr. Mark, with just a quick add, that early warning system is certainly under continued development. And at some point down the road, as we gain confidence in it, and we very well may be able to make more elements and information from that system publicly available. It will be an ongoing project for sure.
Thanks, Wayne. I was, happy to hear your mention of the equity framework and equitable engagement of the community and making sure we have diverse input there. And I imagine we'll have some chances to hear about this in the next presentation, but I think the commission would always be interested in more opportunities to address historical inequity through the programs administered in stormwater. I'll note a couple of things that I see there already, increasing the buyout program for flood-prone properties. I see that as tied to that historical inequity. Investments in the flood or early warning system, those are good. But under that heading of data-driven decisions for allocating resources, I'm wondering if there are opportunities for more consideration of historical inequity there as well, and just encourage staff to think about what data is there beyond the engineering and natural resource realm that can be incorporated into those data-driven decisions.
Yes, very, very good point. And we are looking at that right now. In fact, Wake County has recently published some information related to underserved communities and vulnerable communities. And you will hear a little bit more here about the environmental justice strategic mapping strategic initiative that is part of the city's strategic plan. So we're working closely with the Department of Equity and Inclusion to look at the type of information that they are using to help revisit CIP priorities and looking at how that would be incorporated into our capital improvement priority model. And that's something we're currently working on right now, and we'll certainly keep the commission updated as we progress on ideas for how to do that.
Thank you. Well, we are a few minutes over our time on this topic. If there's an interest in commissioners in continuing with this, we can possibly push a little longer, but if not, give anybody a moment to object. I think we'll move ahead to the presentation of the strategic plan. Sounds like we can move ahead there, Wayne.
Yes, I think I have stopped sharing, and if Matt could turn over the sharing authority to Stephanie Olson. Okay.
You'll have access to it now.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, so give me just a second to get you all back on my other screen so that I can see you as I'm presenting. So thanks for having me today. My name is Stephanie Olson. I'm the Strategic Planning and Performance Manager for the City of Raleigh. And I'm here to give a brief overview of our strategic plan as a whole. And then, as Wayne mentioned, we do have members of specific initiative teams here to give you updates on some projects that we're working on as a city that we think you would be particularly interested in. So I'll go ahead and share my portion of the presentation and then call in the other individuals and then happy to take questions as appropriate. So a strategic plan is really important for an organization because it allows us to take a step back from our day-to-day duties and look at where we want to be as an organization in the future. And then make sure that we're laying the framework for ourselves and the structure that we need in order to reach those future goals. So a lot of the goals that you'll see in our strategic plan are big goals that we are looking into the future to accomplish, and we're making progress towards those goals as we move through our strategic plan, which I'm hoping you'll hear from the initiative teams, kind of all the work that they're doing now to get us where we'd like to be in the future. In Raleigh, our strategic plan is a 5-year strategic plan, and it is a document that is adopted by City Council, and it is where we kind of translate their vision and goals into a strategy that we're able to implement through our work and resource alignment. So a lot of the times as we're making decisions about budget or about projects that we'll be working on, we make sure that they are tied into the strategic plan so that we are all moving in that same strategic direction as an organization. The city has had 2 strategic plans. The first one was our fiscal year 16 through 20 strategic plan, and that plan was adopted in April of 2015. And our new strategic plan is the fiscal year 21 through 25 strategic plan, and that was adopted in October of 2020. And while they are 5-year plans, we do have council review them on an annual basis to make updates to make sure that they stay relevant throughout the lifespan of the plan. I do want to make a quick mention of when we were forming the strategic plan and what process went into that. So there was city council input. We used our community survey results as well as public comment sessions, and we also incorporated staff input to make sure that the plan was representing where we wanted to go as an organization. We were also very intentional with our fiscal year 21 through 25 strategic plan to apply an equity lens to the entire plan. So we did have our Department of Equity and Inclusion look at the plan, review it, make sure that the language was using inclusive language and that we were also working towards goals that would get us where we need to be as an organization in the future. And then we also had all of our initiative teams. I'll get into that structure a little bit in a second, but all of the initiatives were required to apply an equity lens to their initiative as well. And so as they are moving their initiatives forward, we asked them how they would be implementing equity and advancing equity through their work. So every strategic plan initiative does have that lens applied as well. And then we also made sure that our plan was aligned with other plans in the city. So you may be familiar with the city's Community Climate Action Plan, our comprehensive plan. Those are all represented in the work that we're doing in our strategic plan to make sure that we are all aligned as a city. We also provide reports both to council and the public on a regular basis. So if you're interested in seeing more than what we share today, you're welcome to look at these resources. We do produce a yearly report at the end of every fiscal year that goes over the work that we've done that past year. And then we do have a strategic planning website dedicated to this effort. And that's currently going through our most recent updates because we just received our kind of mid-year winter updates from our teams. So we're going through and updating the website now with those new projects and programs that are being worked on. But those are updated on a regular basis. So we'd encourage you to check those out if you're interested in the projects that we're doing. Just a little bit about how our strategic plan is structured. So we have 6 key focus areas, and that helps us to organize our work in our strategic plan. And so you're going to hear from a couple of teams today that are working in 2 of our key focus areas. One is growth and natural resources, and the other is safe, vibrant, and healthy community. But I do want to let you know, just for additional context, that we do have 6 key focus areas that we work on as an organization. And across those key focus areas, we have 94 initiatives that are spread across those key focus areas. And every initiative has a team of cross-departmental staff working to implement that initiative. And that was very intentional so that we are not working in silos. We're working together to make sure that we're implementing these initiatives in the best way possible and incorporating ideas from across the organization as well as the community. So I'm going to just read you kind of the statement, the goal statement for growth in natural resources, and then we'll have some of the initiative team leads present some of the work that they've been doing over the last year. But in growth in natural resources, we're looking to encourage a diverse, vibrant built environment that preserves and protects the community's natural resources, strives for environmental equity and justice, and encourages sustainable growth that complements existing development. So there's a lot there. And I think you'll see from the strategic plan teams how their work kind of ties into this overall goal that we've set in growth and natural resources. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Zach Manner to go through some of the work that we've been doing related to tree canopies and metrics.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Manner, urban forester for the city of Raleigh in the Raleigh Parks Department. So I'm the team lead for Growth and Natural Resources Initiative 1.1. Our goal is to conduct a citywide tree canopy cover assessment, establish canopy metrics and tree planting goals, and identify strategies to improve Raleigh's urban forest to help meet climate, sustainability, resiliency, equity, and accessibility goals. Our team is made up of a pretty wide range of staff of city staff. So we have Justin Rometto at the Planning and Development Department, Megan Anderson with our Sustainability Department, Mike Gudekunst with our Parks Department, who's a GIS specialist, and you may be familiar with Heather Dutra from Stormwater. So as our goal to establish this tree canopy cover over time, we were lucky enough to find out that Wake County just recently got some funding from the American Rescue Act to conduct a county-wide land cover analysis and supporting tree cover assessment. So this will be for the county as a whole, but also provide individual information for each of the municipalities. So their overall focus is to create a county-wide baseline, helps us understand the extent and function of the existing tree canopy. They want to compare the canopy cover to past years, highlight areas of loss or gain. They're looking between 2010 and 2021. The goal is to conduct an assessment across a range of attributes, including specified geographic boundaries, and produce the resources needed to guide future tree canopy initiatives. So our expected deliverables are looking fall of 2022, and there is a focus on equity for vulnerable communities. So as they identify these layers, some of the comparisons that they'll show, they'll be providing a county-wide report as well as individual reports for each of the municipalities. They've been working with the municipalities to get more information on their kind of goals and desires for this report to kind of bring everything together. And they've actually asked Raleigh staff to help participate in selecting a vendor. So the RFP is out currently, the request for proposals. That closes at the end of February, and then we'll begin the selection process moving there. So as we move forward with the initiative, we're going to continue to partner with the county. We're going to identify some potential uses for Raleigh-specific data. So looking at some of the other strategic plan initiatives that you may hear about today, it coordinates quite well with Growth and Natural Resource 3.4, which is a heat island mitigation, and our environmental justice tool strategic plan goal associated with Growth and Natural Resources 3.1. So from a tree perspective, we'll be looking at planning opportunities that'll help us compare with Heat Island and where this canopy is located throughout the city. So we're very excited about this goal, and we're working towards it.
Thank you, Zach. So next up we have our group that is working on low impact development. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them to give this update.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chad Cantrell with Roadway Design and Construction. Here to kind of give a brief overview and an update on GNR 1.2, which right across the top there, it's to build upon the previously developed green stormwater infrastructure administrative policy and help develop tools to encourage and increase the use of low impact development in both private and public projects. Our team is more heavily weighted towards the engineering side. A lot of the staff here, our stormwater staff, as well as roadway design and construction staff. We do have a lone representative from Parks and Rec, and sounds like we may have recruited a second one yesterday. So hopefully fill that bench a little more or diversify the bench a bit. So as far as kind of take a step back, as far as the milestones go, one of the big milestones I think was talked about in the previous presentation, as well as some of the commentary, was to use some of the GIS data out there for our GSI, existing GSI measures, and leverage the equity data other teams are using, as well as the upcoming urban heat island data that there's a webinar tonight on talking about urban heat island effects in underserved communities, and tying that all together to hopefully be able to target some of those underserved communities for GSI implementation that could help alleviate some of the heat island effects. So as far as where we are in initiative progress, right there, first one, gathered a lot of this data on existing and newly installed GSI within the GIS system. Several of the team members have been attending meetings related to GSI and getting that information out to other team members. And then I believe at the last commission meeting, or maybe it was the one before that, the announcement was made that Stormwater had hired a GSI advocate, Sally Hoyt. As far as next steps go, we'll be taking that GIS mapping of the GSI and combining that with urban heat islands and equity measures to help determine what areas would benefit the most from GSI implementation. Stormwater management is currently moving forward with the formalization and approval of the GSI administrative policy. They're currently meeting with leadership of several of the departments that are involved with construction, and I believe the overall goal is to get in front of the city manager later this spring on that. And next up, we'll also be looking at our community outreach and education plan to show City of Raleigh as being a green city and leading by example when it comes to GSI. And then looking at potential sustainability certification programs that kind of extend beyond LEED for buildings, and looking at other alternatives potentially for roadway or utility projects.
Great, thank you, Chad. Next, we'll bring up Scott Bryant to talk about stream restoration prioritization.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a topic that we certainly talk a lot about in stormwater. Thanks to the commission's support over a number of years, these are key priorities that we work on every day. What I'm really excited about as we look at GNR 1.5 is that this really takes it well beyond a stormwater topic. It really becomes a citywide, a multi-departmental, really a community-wide initiative, which is very, very exciting. Stephanie used the term big. This is certainly a big initiative. Develop and establish a stream restoration prioritization plan, including the identification of dams that create negative impacts. We know that there's over 1,000 miles of stream across Raleigh that would stretch more than across the state of North Carolina. So there's a lot of opportunity. We have restored some of those streams. We're working to identify exactly how many miles we've done thus far. We know that there's most of those, however, are in the ownership and operation of the private community beyond the city of Raleigh's ownership or operation. So there's going to be a lot of work informing the community, educating the community about what they can do for streams on their properties, how we can identify and partner with them. We envision public-private partnerships, in addition to our capital projects that we're working on within stormwater and across the city. So we've been working to get our collective hands around these assets, these natural stream assets, as well as these dams. particularly the ones that create negative impacts. In terms of policy, we're looking at policies in place to advance these. The commission has provided great support in both areas. It was October 2020 that City Council adopted the new lake management evaluation policy that Wayne referred to earlier, with the Upper Durant project being the first to move through that. That was really a really great case study for how we as a community identify and develop the best solutions for these impounded areas for today's conditions and going forward. So we really feel that's a solid framework for dealing with the dams. In terms of streams, we're continuing to work on policy there. Chaz and his team in drainage assistance are bringing forth a stream stabilization policy in the near future, could be potentially leveraged for this initiative as well. So we have looked to develop the inventory of the streams. Same thing in terms of the dams. You know, there's around 40 or so that have direct city ownership or city operation, more than 100 across the community, not including those that are associated with stormwater control measures such as wet ponds or dry ponds. There's 500 or 600 of those, so a lot of smaller dams in that regard. A lot of work taking place to partner with Raleigh Water, continue work with Parks and Recreation, trying to do collaborative stream projects that would benefit and protect sanitary sewer assets, for example, greenways, for example, and parklands. So we're very excited. Some projects upcoming include Upper Durant Lake, as Wayne mentioned earlier, the conversion of that to a hybrid wetland system. And also the Eastgate Lake Dam is an upcoming project for us. So a lot of work taking place, much more to take place. In terms of where we are going forward, this is a multi-year effort. Our next steps here on the initiative for 1.5 are to report out what we found, really expand our internal and our external outreach. You know, departments beyond those that are involved with our initiative here, which are focused on Raleigh Water, engineering services, and Parks, Recreation, Cultural Resources. We want to reach out to other departments and then into the community as well to see how we can advance this initiative, dealing with both streams and with dams. So ongoing partnerships, look for those opportunities, and we're excited about this. Again, this is one that really is close to us in stormwater, and we're really excited about leveraging, working with our departments and the entire community to advance streams and deal with these dams that create negative impacts.
Thank you, Scott. And I know you have the next one as well.
Yes, I'm equally, if not even more excited about this one. This is GNR 4.4, and this is to work with community partners to engage youth in stewardship and environmental education opportunities. I've been so thankful and very thankful to have had a number of mentors over the years. This is really a program where we can work with, support, mentor youth in our community that are interested in stewardship and environmental education. The commission might recall, I think it was last June, our first set of cohorts in the Partnership Raleigh Community Climate Internship Program gave presentations to SMAC. I think those were very well received. They did a great job. I wanted to let the commission know, if you've not heard about this, that program was recently awarded the Research Triangle Clean Tech Cluster. Let me read this. This is long. The Research Triangle Clean Tech Cluster 2021 Clean Tech Innovation Award for Talent Development. So great job there. You see in the photograph, Kathy Ector, Megan Anderson, our city team. Really great job. All the departments involved with that. So that's exciting. What we're doing in terms of this initiative is really reaching out and trying to grow programs like that within the city, and then partner with the community to do that. One action item that we created here in Stormwater with commission support, support for the resources that we have, is creating new part-time internship roles. So we've done 3 within just the last year. You know, and our intent is to hopefully have those be ongoing opportunities for youth and college, high school, college, generally college students, those pre-career, to come in and work with us in stormwater, and hopefully, you know, think about joining the stormwater initiative after they graduate. So it's very exciting. We are working very closely, as Stephanie mentioned, with equity and inclusion to include all of our community and to advance all of our community. So that's some of our next steps, is actually to review our survey with our equity inclusion team. We're going to administer a stakeholder survey to get input to our program and chances to advance partnerships. And then we're going to probably this spring hold a virtual meeting with those that are interested. So to the commission members, if you are aware of organizations in the Raleigh or greater Raleigh community that would like to partner on sponsoring youth programs for stewardship, environmental education, please, you can certainly reach out to me and to Wayne. We will send the survey to you and welcome your input. But this is very, very exciting and something that is going to benefit all of Raleigh. You know, these are really our leaders of the future, and the chance to work with them now is very, very encouraging. Thank you all.
Thank you, Scott. All right, next up we have environmental justice mapping. So I'll turn it over to that team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Johnson. I'm the SCM Inspections Coordinator in the development side of Stormwater Division, and we handle compliance of permanent SCMs. I've been given the opportunity to participate in GNR Initiative 3.1, and we are working to utilize an environmental justice mapping tool to enhance understanding of environmental inequities in our community and identify potential options for mitigation. We do have a large team spanning across several departments in the city. Unfortunately, this fall, we did have several members leave the city or transition into higher roles. So we have had a little bit of a delay in getting back together since our team has shuffled around a bit, and we're working on filling some of those holes right now. However, we have started working on compiling a list of readily available data and the sources where we can get that from. We are considering collaborating with Duke Energy on some additional data for mapping. And right now, our next scheduled team meeting is next week. And that'll be the first time we're all getting together again as a full team since we've had our vacancies. So we have finalized our definition of environmental justice, which is on the right side of the screen. And I'm looking forward to getting back together with the team.
Great, thank you, Laura. And I'll turn it back over to Ben to talk about repetitive structural flooding.
Yeah, so GNR 3.5, we are tasked with to identify and implement policy or programs and financial strategies to address repetitive structural flooding caused by many factors, such as underutilized infrastructure, land development changes, and climate change. And so we have a pretty practically diverse group with me, Jason Moon from Transportation Field Services, Derek Smith from Budget, and Nicole Ward from Planning Development, and Wayne Miles from Stormwater as well. And basically, we are at the first part of this task, which that was our best tack to take. To have a large task like this was to bite off as much as we could and just start with step one. Where so far we have reviewed a report from a stormwater consultant on new storm frequency data, and we're hoping to finalize that report either this month or in March. And also the cataloging of all flooded structures, which is done through the Engineering Service Department and the Transportation Department, kind of looking at our records and compiling them like in one spot. And we're about 85% complete with that. And our next steps is going to be finalizing that cataloging, which is our biggest task, and then developing a priority ranking system for that data and kind of where that data falls. And part of that cataloging is also looking at the causes of these structure impacts. Is it for the infrastructure piece? Is it for just too close to a creek? Is there development stream or changes upstream that we need to address, and then kind of develop that priority ranking system based on that. So hopefully got some good work ahead, but we're very excited about it.
Thank you, Ben. And then we're going to transition over into our safe, vibrant, and healthy community key focus area. This key focus area has the goal of promoting a clean, engaged community environment where people feel safe and enjoy access to affordable housing and community amenities that support a high quality of life. And we have one of the initiative teams in this key focus area here to present to you about how we're trying to build community members' resilience to disasters. So I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Our initiative is to develop and implement strategies to build community members' resilience to disasters, prioritizing vulnerable communities to support equitable recovery, growth following a disaster. So this is a really broad team. Again, it's another large team on the strategic plan, but we really wanted to make sure we were pulling team members from departments that were involved in resilience building, in disaster preparedness, in emergency response, and then in recovery following a disaster. So one of the first pieces of work we undertook was a large-scale cross-city resource and program inventory and gap analysis to understand what tools and resources we have available and how we're sharing those out, because getting resources and information into people's hands is one of the key steps to helping them prepare. And two of the gaps that we identified were language, having tools and resources and things available for people in multiple languages, because limited English proficiency is one of the key risks or key factors in disaster risk for people. And then also information and education that is sort of evergreen content that we can share out over time, similar information that just allows people to be educated about where those resources are and how they can access them. So this past year, our team has done a ton of work, and we met with our communications department, and one of the steps that's already underway is moving the Ready Raleigh Emergency Preparedness Guide from a PDF form into just loading that information onto the web page so it is translatable with our translation app on the web. So before we can, it's kind of a stopgap measure to getting it fully translated. And then second is this morning we actually had our first meeting on this, is developing some seasonal preparedness videos and social media campaigns. Our team is going to undertake 2 in the next 3 months, which will be hurricane preparedness and extreme heat preparedness. And so those will just be very generic videos and campaigns that will help drive people back to the website in order to help them identify those resources and where there might be a cooling center near them, where how they could find a park with a splash pad or a pool on a hot day, what number they might call to do debris pickup after a hurricane blows through town. And then the final thing I'll mention today is that my office, the Office of Sustainability, and the Stormwater Division are applying for a NOAA grant, which is Community Education for Climate Resilience. And one of the components of that grant application is a meeting in a box tool for preparedness. So we would be putting together a package of resources, including something like a PowerPoint presentation, a printed version of our emergency preparedness guide, and some other resources for emergency preparedness, and developing a tool that any city department or even community group could access and use that to distribute and grow our preparedness in the community. Also, one last thing, if I can, to plug, Chad had mentioned our webinar tonight on the urban heat mapping. I put a link to that in the chat, and I'll also add a link to the Ready Raleigh Emergency Preparedness Guide and our urban heat mapping page, which you can play around with the maps and zoom in on your neighborhood and find out if you're living in or near a heat island. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nicole. So that is what we have. I'm happy to take questions. We also have our initiative team members on the call, and then so I'll just turn it back over to you if there's any questions that you have.
I'll encourage commissioners to ask away.
I know I have a question, but I guess it's more of a comment in regard to the tree canopy studies. I guess that could also be a great focal point for tourism, in the city of Oaks. So, great work.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do have a lot of trees in the city. We do recognize that that's not always an equitable resource across the city. So we do want to look at ways that we can establish more equitable tree canopy across the city and also mitigate that heat in other ways as well. So yes, exciting work.
This is Graham. Curious about the person, I forget the name, but someone presented, I think it was a second topic about the green infrastructure stuff. It seemed to possibly not correlate the green. I was just curious as to how that correlated to somewhat how Ben alluded to the fact that like the Green Raleigh review isn't that successful because it's got, and I've tried that process a couple times and projects don't meet that 90% criteria kind of thing. And so, wondering what parts of that process you guys are investigating, all of the green, how do you incentivize it even further? So maybe I missed something in the translation as to what you're doing versus what's happening on the other end. So
yeah, no, good question. And that's definitely something that's been a point of discussion in a lot of our meetings, is incentivization of GSI for private development. And that would be, I know, something that one of the team members, our GSI advocate, had been looking into. And I'm not sure if that's something that will be, obviously we can expand upon that once we have some more information. I think she was looking at other cities on how they incentivize it. And then I think from a public point of view, or a public project point of view, I know one of the goals of that administrative policy is to go above and beyond, knowing that our hands are a little tied on requiring additional GSI from private development. So for public projects to treat more than what is needed.
And I guess a follow-up to that, Sally was just promoted to a different position. So is she still a GSI advocate, or is there a position, will that position be backfilled? Is that, she's in a different review because I think she's in charge of the reviewers. I agree. I mean, I think according to last month's meeting. So I just didn't know if there's, it'd be great if we had a GSI advocate full-time. So that's all.
Yeah, Sally is keeping that role as GSI advocate. When she backfills her old review position, there will be a reviewer that focuses on the actual nuts and bolts like review, but that advocacy position will still be held by Sally.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chad, too.
I want to thank you for the presentation. I just have two questions. I think it was Laura who presented on the environmental justice definition. And I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. You have the equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens across lines of socioeconomic, so on and so forth. So if I read it in two parts, you have the equitable distribution of environmental benefits, and you could say you have the equitable distribution of environmental burdens. And my critique is on that last part. If you have equitable distribution of burdens, particularly on communities that historically have been underrepresented and overburdened, that's not equity, that's equality. And so I would invite your group to look at maybe massaging this definition, taking history into account, because there are communities that have not had benefits as it relates to the environment. And so to apply a little bit of benefit to historically marginalized does not really lift the marginalized, and certainly to equitably distribute burdens on an already overburdened community is not equitable. So I don't know if you had any response to that or any thoughts on my statement.
Hello, Mr. Taylor. I appreciate your feedback for sure. And to be truthfully honest, our last official meeting was back in September, and then our team lead was promoted to the administrator of Raleigh Water, I believe, or the assistant administrator. And then we lost 4 or 5 members who left the city. So we have not reconvened since then. And to be totally honest, when we were creating this definition, I felt that it was a little wordy as well. So I do appreciate your comment on that. And I see what you're saying, that having the benefits and burdens in that same sentence doesn't really make sense.
Well, no, not that it doesn't make sense. I mean, it actually makes sense, but I mean, there is, when you're talking about equitable, what is equitable, and you take the historical context into account to then have equal distribution of burden on people who have been overburdened, that's not equity.
Yes.
It's actually just adding to the burden at all. It's not lifting or counteracting the burden at all. So you could have benefits and burden in the definition. I just think it needs to be delineated differently.
Yes, I guess I just meant in relation to the rest of the sentence. I see where you're saying that doesn't balance out. I believe there are a few other members of my team on this meeting as well, Nicole and Zach. So I hope they're hearing these comments as well. And I will bring these back to our group. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, or our first back together. So this will definitely be something we discuss.
Thank you so much. My second question or statement is not to Laura, but as I was reviewing, it's probably to Stephanie, and then she can decide where this goes. When I was reviewing the packet in the pre-meeting material, as I look at the strategic plan, which is page 10, actually 11 in the packet and 22 in our document, and I had some concern about the initiatives under the title of Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy Community, particularly this first initiative. I don't know if these are in level of importance, but initiative 1.1, apply crime prevention through environmental design. And there is a lot of literature about CEPTID, which, as you know, is the acronym. And I guess one of my concern is that using that the literature is not conclusive, and for a strategic plan to have under safety the top priority to be CEPTID is a little concerning, since the literature is in my opinion inconclusive. And we know that sometimes CEPTID has been used historically to manipulate and exclude and segregate poor marginalized communities. I mean, you can really look at the far end of this with Robert Moses and his work in New York, Cross Bronx Expressway, and other things, using really barriers to prevent people from inhabiting green space and particularly beaches. And so I don't know if anybody wants to comment how heavily the city of Raleigh is leaning on CEPTID, and perhaps this question is more appropriately given or pitched to the city council, I guess, since they're the owners of this.
Sure. So I can give a little bit of background there. We do have historically the CEPTID training was only offered to police officers. And so we had a larger group of staff go through CEPTID training to kind of understand how, when they're building new buildings or putting in new greenways, kind of what type of structural design should go into those designs to make sure that it is being built in a way and implemented in a way that is safer for the community. So for example, we had our greenways evaluated, and they found that there was plant overgrowth that was preventing a straight line of vision, for example. And so they had teams going in and cleaning that sort of thing up. So they've used that at our facilities to make sure that our structures and the ways that things are implemented are being done in a way that's mindful to kind of those safety principles. But I will, of course, bring this feedback back to that group as well, so that they're aware and maybe looking at some other avenues too.
Reverend Taylor, this is Graham Smith, and as a landscape architect, I was stunned to see that as number one in this category. That's a thing, but not, I mean, objective 4 or 5 seems like greater city goal objectives than dealing with SEPTED. SEPTED is, as you say, it's a principle that's been around for a long time, but it may be part of the reason why we don't have a lot of, I mean, part of the bias of less plants in an unequitable manner spread across cities is plants are places where people hide and bad. Like it just goes to story after story and fences and barriers. And like you said with Moses, I'm a little bit stunned. It seems like an outdated approach to the idea of safety and healthy living in communities and all of that. So I was taken aback by it as well. So.
And one thing I will just share briefly is that the number does not mean importance. It's just the organization of the plan. So don't take number 1 or 4 or whatever as being any less or more important.
But also I've done a numerous amount of city projects and presented projects from a development standpoint. This has never come up. So it's interesting that it's noted as part of the strategic plan when it's not talked about in the daily world of what is done in the world. So it's counterintuitive to kind of how things are flowing, and it seems counterintuitive to the way Raleigh wants to be.
Yeah, I will go as far as say I am not an expert in this area, but the inclusion of SEPTED in this document, in my opinion, negates the word equity in the entire document. The overburden of this term, you may as well just take equity out of the entire strategic plan. Again, this is just my opinion, and I appreciate Mr. Graham's comment, Mr. Smith's comment.
Thank you for the enlightening discussion, and I'll and appreciate you going beyond the specifically connected stormwater initiatives that were being presented here. I think it's important to look through this document holistically. So thanks to the commission members for weighing in. This is the strategic plan. The status of this strategic plan presented to us is that it has been adopted or in process of being adopted, and I use that term loosely.
Sure. So the City Council adopted the strategic plan in October of 2020. They do revisit it on a yearly basis to keep it updated.
And so that next opportunity, would that be coming up in the fall of this year, or is it just whenever you get a critical mass of input?
Sure. So we usually do a review of the strategic plan as a whole at the City Council's retreat, which is around this time each year. I think it's in March this time. And then go back to council at an actual council meeting where they can discuss it and adopt any changes. So they do formally adopt any changes that they make each year.
The comments raised about SEPTED were not in an initiative that was, specifically directed around stormwater. I will, from my perspective, I can see where environmental burdens contribute to crime in various areas, and so I think there is a good connection between the work of the stormwater program and of this commission and efforts towards crime prevention. So I think these comments are and concerns about SEPTID and its inclusion here seem pretty well grounded and topical. What is the most effective way for members of the commission to have their input heard on that topic? Is there something beyond this meeting that we should be using as a means of addressing that concern?
So I might turn that one to Wayne, and I'm happy to contribute.
Yeah, I'm glad to comment, Stephanie. Thanks. I've learned something. I appreciate the feedback. This was not one of the strategic initiatives that was on my radar in terms of having stormwater, a stormwater related aspect of it. But in looking it up and learning more, wasn't familiar with that term, but I appreciate the education, the feedback from the commission. I'm glad to take this forward as feedback from the commission. We do have regular meetings that Stephanie and her group help to organize, where updates on individual initiatives are provided to a core team that includes representatives of the city manager's office. I think this is feedback that would be appropriate to bring up at those initiative update meetings. And I'd be glad to work with Stephanie to make sure that feedback is brought forward. And that initiative is not one that a stormwater representative has been on. I've tried to work to get stormwater representatives on the initiatives where I saw a connection, but Stephanie, maybe you and I can look to get someone from the stormwater division with some interest in that topic on that initiative team to help make that connection more rigorous. And I do appreciate Stephanie coming and providing this overview, as well as everyone who gave individual initiatives. There's quite a few initiatives, and we only touched on a number of them. But if there's any additional feedback that you all have, I'd be glad to take that. And I see this overall city strategic initiative is a wonderful opportunity to get stormwater staff involved in initiatives that may or may not be directly related to stormwater, but gives them an opportunity to network with other city departments, to get involved in strategic initiatives across the city that widens our perspective as a division for how stormwater may or may not be involved, and gives our staff growth opportunities to learn as well. So this feedback has been very helpful to me, and I'm sure the initiative teams, and we will definitely pass it along. And so thank you to the commission for all of the feedback, and any other additional feedback you'd like to provide to me via email or otherwise after the meeting, be glad to take forward as well.
Thank you, Wayne. Other commissioners have follow up on that or other topics in the strategic plan they'd like to ask questions about, make comments on?
Evan, I would just like to thank staff for presenting all of their work here, and definitely there's some really interesting cross collaboration happening, and it's really nice to see where things are going. I know it takes quite a bit of effort, so I appreciate the efforts.
Well, thanks. I'm overall, I would say very pleased to see the connections being made across different areas, connections between heat islands and the need for green stormwater infrastructure as an example, and appreciate the staff taking the time to present this work. I hope there is, along with these ambitious initiatives, a good investment in these teams in terms of keeping them staffed, keeping them moving along, and giving staff the opportunity to advance these initiatives while also doing their sort of 9 to 5 jobs.
Mr. Chair, if I could make one more quick comment.
Please.
And Nicole Goddard mentioned the Heat Island event tonight that she put in the chat. Just in case the commission hears from any residents or any feedback, we also have a public meeting this evening up at Millbrook Exchange Park related to what we're calling our Western Northridge Stormwater Improvements Project, which is a rather large project. Is probably in the order of $5 to $6 million to address a number of house and street flooding issues in the Northridge neighborhood, and that project's nearing the end of design. And there is a public meeting tonight with the review with residents, the proposals. But just in case you all are hear of anything, or certainly if you'd like to attend, you're welcome. It starts at 6 o'clock at Millbrook Exchange Park.
Thanks for pointing that out, Wayne. Any other commission comments on this topic?
Just appreciate all the staff's time to give us all that good information.
Indeed. Well, that is, we are near our time. The last item, well, I'll first ask Wayne if there's been any other requests for comment.
No, sir. I
Okay.
see no other requests in the chat.
We are, if there's not other business from any commissioners, give you a chance to speak up if there is. Then we have come to the end of our agenda and could adjourn if there is a motion to do so. Thank you, Mark. Second from Katie. All in favor of adjournment? Thanks everybody for everybody's participation today and thoughts and comments, and look forward to seeing you all in March, where we will duke out leadership roles for the commission.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks everybody.
Take care. Thanks.